It's great to have you with us from wherever you're tuning in from. For more information about Elevate Church or to contact us, head to our website elevatechurch.me and take us wherever you go by downloading our Elevate Church AU app. We hope this message inspires and helps you to take your next steps in your journey.
Well, good morning. You might have declared, at some point in their past, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And then the second it starts to rain, I can't go to church on that. Yeah, okay. But that's not you, because you're here. So wonderful, yes. Hey, a quick shout out to the Hoods family, who this week became Aussie Aussies. And I know a bit of their story and the lead up. It wasn't a short and easy journey. So well done to you guys for doing what you needed to do and pushing through. And by the way, just Kim and I were talking earlier, we don't think, and we were both born in Australia, we don't think we would pass the test that they asked the question. But, So there you go, well played. So this is, as Louis said, the fourth and final installment of a series that we've been teaching called Fresh Start, a new beginning with money. And every year here at Elevate, we teach a series on God's principles for financial management. And we do that for a variety of reasons. Number one, God has a lot to say about the subject. This is not a marginal topic in the Bible. Secondly, it's something we all have in common. We all have some level of requirement and responsibility for managing the financial resources that God entrusts to us. And so why not learn to manage the finances God entrusts to us in the way that He actually instructs? Because in doing that, we start to move towards the results and the promises that He has in mind for us, which include, and here's the three that we've been banging on, and incidentally, what I'm about to say, these are the three that money can't buy, but managing money well can lead us towards, and that is more peace, more freedom, and more purpose. And I'm going to really lean on that third one today about this idea of having more purpose when it comes to our finances. So just a quick recap, or those of you that are new here, let me catch you up. Week one, we talked about this idea, live with less worry. Statistics very, very regularly point out that money is one of the primary sources of stress in people's lives. So that's what we covered off with. Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow. He didn't say don't plan for tomorrow, but He did say don't worry about tomorrow. And we're reminded that God is ultimately large and in charge. Second, here we go. Spend wisely. Big idea there. Learn to spend less than you earn. And in doing so, create some margin. Guess what? People with more margin sleep better than people who don't have any margin. More peace. And thirdly, save for the future. Which, interesting to me, of these three series, that's the one that's been the most watched on our online experience and the most listened to on our podcast. I don't know why that is, but that's interesting. And this idea that while we know we can't take it with us, the joke is you don't see a removal van behind the hearse on the way to the cemetery. You just got to leave it all behind. There is this idea that we can actually save so that we're not backed against the wall when an emergency comes up. We can actually start to think about maybe creating some generational wealth so our kids can get a little bit of a leg up, and on it goes. Anyway, that's that. That's the first 3 weeks. If you missed any of those, I strongly recommend you go back and listen to them on our podcast, which is easier than ever before because you can do it on our app, which is what the flow code on the seat back in front of you is all about. Scan that, download our app, podcast is there. Because what we're teaching is like a whole kind of approach. It's not just pick one. This is like we're trying to build a puzzle here and piece it all together. So today I want to talk about the last piece of the puzzle, why we give. Okay, so now largely, this idea of giving is largely, not entirely, but largely a countercultural concept, or at least the idea of consistently giving a regular amount to something or someone is a little bit countercultural. Giving's not entirely countercultural because, we give to telethon, or we give, like that. You don't have to be a Jesus follower. We give like in some of those kind of situations. But this idea of actually intentionally orienting our lives that we would consistently giving a portion of what God blesses us with, that's largely countercultural because we live in a culture when it comes to money that the prevailing message is to get rich. Like you're winning in life if your net worth is going up. If you die with more than the person next to you, guess what? You won. That's this idea of get rich. Whereas, and here's the thing, God's not against his children having some financial resources, which in fact Jesus said some of it you can even just enjoy. You don't have to shame the person that's going on the cruise. Oh, a lot of starving kids in the world would benefit from the money you wasted on that. Well, you don't know that. That person might have given 95% of their money away and saved their buttocks off for 7 years, and they're going on a cruise. Oh, shame on them. Must be nice. We don't know that. But here's the thing. Kingdom culture shifts the game to say you're winning if you understand that God has called us not to get rich as the number one goal, but to be rich. To actually be rich, that there's a purpose. So again, remember, we're talking about God wants us to experience more peace, live with less worry, more freedom, save for the future. And now we're talking about more purpose, this idea of being rich. Because just to say, some of you, there's a very good chance you've seen opportunities in the past to be generous for something, and you've thought to yourself, I'd love to do that, but I don't actually have the financial resources. Again, this is this idea of if we are managing our financial resources while creating some margin, then we get the opportunity to be rich with a portion of what God's blessed us with. And there is some overlap, and I can talk about that another time. I don't have the time to get into that. Here's the question. How many of you love giving? Listen carefully. Giving, not getting. How many of you love giving gifts? Who are my gift givers here? Yeah, you know who you are. You're like you've already started your Christmas list of what you want to give, not what Santa's wish list of what you want to get. By the way, you can create both of those lists. But yeah, you know who you are. You love giving gifts. This week, I read an article. Now, here's a little fun game we're all going to play together. I read an article, top worst gifts to give your spouse. Now, this is how we're going to play this game. Just think of one. Don't say it out loud, but just think, of the top three, what do you think one of those is? Just think about what you think that might be. Some of you might have already in your past given your spouse that gift and thought, I really regretted that. All right, here we go. Number three. That's number three. I mean, come on, you can't be shocked that made the top three. I love you, honey. Here's a scale. It's connected to Apple's fitness app. I don't care. It's going to be connected to your head in a second. All right. Did anyone have that in their guess? No? Well, but you're thinking, I probably should have. All right. Here's the next one. Now, these kind of run in the same lane. Just saying. This was number two. These run in the same. Anyone have this on their list? No, but again, right. Oh, this one. A vacuum cleaner. Yeah. All right. Here's the thing. You can buy them for yourself. You can say, I think as a household, we need to get a new vacuum cleaner. That was number one. Now, listen, I'll give you a bonus one. And this is from my own personal experience. When Louie, my wife, was 21, we were engaged, not yet married, engaged, and she was turning 21. And I thought of the best present ever. I bought her a fry pan. Yes! Woohoo! Now, it was an expensive fry pan, understand? I did a lot of research, bought a fry pan. So yes, you now know why our marriage got off to such a rocky start. Because I weaponized Louisa, and I'm surprised I didn't wear that fry pan. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, all right, let's get into the Bible, what God says. So if you've got your Bible app, you can then scan this flow code. It's going to take you to 2 Corinthians chapter 9. So while you're doing that, let me give you a little bit of context here. This is a letter written by Paul. Now, Paul was one of the leaders of the early church, and he wrote, this is the second of two letters. He wrote to the church in a place called Corinth, which was in Greece, in the known world at the time. And he's giving them instruction of all sorts of things. By the way, in one of the letters, he wrote like a real, I'll give you some instruction, and told them off. But this one is like a little bit encouragement, including encouragement around giving. And a little spoiler, he's going to lean into this idea that just like when we give gifts to people, we give gifts to people as an act of love, not obligation, as an act of demonstrating to them how valuable they are in our lives, and so we give thoughtful gifts most of the time, and it kind of demonstrates that. So Paul applies that same motivation and encourages us to move towards that same motivation when it comes to giving to God. Okay, so here's what Paul wrote. He said, you must each decide in your heart how much to give. In other words, he's not throwing down the number. That number is between you and God. You must decide. And don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure. This isn't about guilt and pressure and giving's an obligation. And if you really loved Jesus, show me your bank statements. But God loves a person who gives cheerfully. That's kind of like when you give a gift to someone you love, you've got a smile on your face, and you're hoping that they'll ultimately have a smile on their face. It's the same kind of idea. More freedom and more purpose when it comes to giving. Not more arm twisting, not more shaken down, not any of those sort of things. So I just want to do a really quick flyover today. Again, this message is called Why We Give. And the we, it's Louie and I, why we give. It's our team members, why we give. It's many of you, why you give. And together it's the we. And it's the we of Jesus followers all over the world, based on God's principles, why we give. And the first one is the first one. And the reason is it, in a very practical way, it puts God first. Yes. It reminds us as we're actually giving to God, it's not that it reminds him that he's first, although it does, but it reminds us that he's first. It's like a practical, because you can say it, but as the saying goes, talk is cheap. This is like a practical demonstration that I am putting God first. So Solomon, one of the wisest people that ever lived, he wrote a bunch of proverbs, which we might call wise tweets in 2025. And one of them is this: honor the Lord with your wealth, with your income, with the first, and I'll I'll click on that soon, with the first fruits of all your crops. Now, we're teaching in this 4-week series, we're teaching the giving slice, the giving piece of the puzzle last. However, it's actually very much first. There's some reasons why we're doing it in that order, but giving is very much first. And in fact, when we read the Bible, and we've been studying this and teaching this for many, many, many years, we see a very simple and clear pattern that can be distilled this way. That the simple, clickable, memorable, tweetable, doable pattern of financial management is these three things, and done in this order. Give to God first, honor him, put him first, save second, and then live off the rest. And it looks like this. So there's income. Income's being given to you by your employer, your business, whatever. Uncle Billy died and sent you some money, whatever it is. God bless you, Uncle Billy. Rest in peace. Just by the way, just for the record, if you've ever wondered what God looks like, now you know. Because anyway, He's a stick man. Now, when I was in my 20s, now I've said in this series before, I didn't grow up in a family that taught, we didn't talk about money, so I didn't sort of know how to manage finances. And, that was like a cultural thing in my parents' generation. By the way, some of you would have experienced a similar thing. So I started to educate myself in my 20s. How does money work? How do you manage money? What is it? The whole thing. I said a couple of weeks ago, if you don't educate yourself in how to manage money, guess what? Your money talks, it says goodbye. So we educate ourselves, we teach ourselves, and we get better at it. Well, when I started to educate myself, one of the first principles I learned from these books and so on, cassette tapes back then, was this picture, but this piece wasn't in the picture. Okay, so I'll come back to that. The sort of, because I was reading just investment books and from out in the wild, from Dymocks, not from the Christian bookstore. And what those taught was from here on, and the principle was pay yourself first. That's the principle. And you'll come across that if you've been studying money, whatever. Pay yourself first. And the idea is, if you don't put yourself right up the front of the line, then all of these guys are ahead of you. Telstra, bank mortgage, landlord, internet service provider, gas station, supermarket, Netflix. Like these are all, I put one guy, but they're like, and if you put them first, what that means is you're actually at the end of the line, and you only technically get paid, even though the money's coming from your income source, you only technically get paid if there's anything left over after you've stood there. Well, actually, you didn't stand there. You're at the back of the line. Everyone else is in the front of you going, thank you very much, thank you very much. So I learned that, this concept of pay yourself first. As a Jesus follower, we drop God in front of us. So that principle, pay yourself first, matters, but it's now pay yourself second. Give to God first, pay yourself second, which is called savings, and then here's what you can do. Once you've given to God first and then paid yourself second, here's what you can do with the rest of it. You can just do this. Have it all! Because just take it. I mean, they're going to give you some services and you can live in the home that the bank owns and all that. You say, take it all, because you've already given to God and you've already paid yourself. So I don't mind if the rest just disappears. The problem is, I said earlier, when I learned, was that people put themselves at the end of the list and get the leftovers. The problem in this situation is people put themselves and God at the end. And the mistake is, I'll give to God if there's something left over. But I want to say to you, I don't think that's a step of faith. And I'll talk about that. I'm not shaming anyone. I'm just saying I don't think. Because when Solomon said, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of your crops, he was talking to people in an agricultural society. So he would talk about crops. He would talk about animals. Technically, that was the currency of the day. That was your income, And he made it very clear, honor God with the first of your harvest, the first of your animals. And the reason that mattered is because when you took the first of your crops, having started the harvest, or when you took the firstborn lamb, for example, when you took them to the temple to offer them to God, there was no guarantee that you would have more crops when you got back to the property, or that locusts hasn't eaten them, or that a storm hasn't come and destroyed them all. There was no guarantee of that. But actually, by bringing the first 10%, you were actually putting your trust in God that He would provide and protect, both of those matter, provide and protect the rest that's back home. When you brought Him the first lamb, you weren't guaranteed there was going to be a second lamb, or if there was, that it was going to survive, or if it survived, that it was going to be healthy. So you took your first, so when you took your first crops or your first animal to the temple to offer to God, on the surface, it looked like a risky act. Yeah. Like, are you sure? An unwise act. Like, let's wait till we've got 10, and then we can give the 10th to God, the leftovers. And but it wasn't an act of risk. It was very much an act of faith. It was, I'm going to give God the first, and I'm going to trust that as I give him the first and the best, he will bless the rest. And I love this. As Solomon, there was a comment earlier, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops, then. Now, you read the word then, you can also read it as if you do that. Meaning, that's what God's asking of us. And then this is what he promises he will do in response. This is what this will trigger. Your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. A lot of people love that second part, but forget it's triggered by us being faith-filled and faithful with the first part, which takes me straight on to the second reason we give, is that it opens our life up to God's provision. So again, going all the way back to Paul, you must each decide in your heart how much to give. Don't give reluctantly in response to pressure, for God loves a person who gives frying pans cheerfully. And God will generously, here we go, again, this is the exact same pattern that Solomon just demonstrated. If you do that, it triggers this. Then God will generously provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and, plenty left over to share with others. Same principle. Giving opens our lives up to God's provision in our lives. This is the law of sowing and reaping. Very simply put. If you're a farmer, you understand the law of sowing and reaping. You will not get a harvest unless you first planted something. You sowed something. And it's not an idea. It's not a suggestion. It's not even a principle. It's actually a law. It's exactly the same category as the law of gravity. What goes up must come down. No exceptions. Law of sowing and reaping. What you sow, then you will reap. If you sow, then you will reap. If you don't sow, then you won't reap. It's literally a law that God set up in motion. So you want to reap some more? Guess what? Sow some more. It's just as simple as that. Now, about 25 years ago, when I was a wee young lad, I was working at a church down the road, and we had a guest speaker in town. His name's Rick Godwin from San Antonio, Texas. And he was in town, and I was hosting him for the time that he was here. That's kind of part Uber driver, part coffee delivery guy, part just whatever you need, I'll help you while you're here in town. And so we were at the facility of the church then, walking around, and then we were in just like a hangout coffee with some of the other leaders of the church. And the topic came around to the idea that the church needed like new carpet, like wanted but needed. Incidentally, don't look down because we're kind of in that same spot ourselves. This idea of needing new carpet. And by the way, if you've ever bought carpet for a reasonable area, you know it's not cheap to buy it and to have it installed. So we're just talking about that. And Rick says, all right, my church, this is Texas people, they just straight up and down, I love them. My church will give you $20,000 US towards your carpet. And we're all like, okay. Did he just say $20,000 US towards our carpet? Praise the Lord. So later that day, I'm just walking around with him, and we're walking on the carpet that was going to be replaced now a little bit sooner than we initially budgeted. And I said, Rick, man, listen, that was an incredibly generous offer that you made this morning, $20,000 for our carpet. I remember he's texting. He goes, Mark, I'm not a generous man. I'm a smart man. Because my church is about to launch a new building campaign. And we want to build a new building in our current location. So I just sowed that seed here, and I'm trusting that God will allow our church to reap over there. I'm not generous, thank you, but I'm smart. Now here's the thing. Let me make a statement that on the surface sounds spiritual. And you might have heard it, some of you might have even said it. Well, I don't give to get. Polish his halo. And I say, why not? Don't you understand the law of sowing and reaping? Now, I said, don't make it your number one motivation. Put God first. That's the number one motivation. Honor him, glorify him. You know, the things that you don't get to polish your own halo. You just like, that's what I'm doing. But put it in the top 5. Put it in the top 5. You want to buy a house for yourself, invest in the house of God and say, God, I'm investing in your house because we're trusting you that you're going to provide a house for us. We're going to sow here, trust him, we're going to reap over here. That's very spiritual. It's the law of sowing and reaping. Come on. You're looking at me like, you will not hear a farmer who makes a living from growing crops say to you, well, I don't plant wheat seed to grow wheat so I can make money for myself. Yeah, you do. That's exactly what you do. Now, you might take that money or a portion of it and bless other people with it, but it's the law of sowing and reaping. It's smart, even if it's not generous, although I think it's both. So, but you don't tell Texas people that they're wrong. Yeah, sure, Rick. What do you know? Everything's bigger in Texas. I know. I heard that one too, all right? Go back. So years ago, one of my friends, very smart man, like 1,000 times smarter than me, Dr. Mike O'Neill, Perth boy. He's a doctor in theology, not chiropractic. We asked him to can you distill the big idea in the Bible on giving? Like what is it, like if you could just put one sentence together. It was a big task. And he went to town and he came up with it as this. The first 10% is both a goal and a minimum. First 10% is, now some of you have heard this before, but some of you, this might be new. So let me break that down. The first 10%, this is like the big biblical faith journey idea distilled in this big idea. The first 10% is both a goal and a minimum. So it recognizes a few things. Number one, all of us start at 0. All of us. Like I did. There was a point where I wasn't giving to God and then I took my first step. Now, I'm not putting numbers on first step and next step, but I'm just saying when we're at 0, at some point, there's an opportunity to take a first step. And we literally say, just start with 1%. Because that may be where your faith is at. 1%, okay. I survived. And then, let your faith catch up. Let God demonstrate his goodness. And then you're like, all right, God, I see what you're doing. Let's go to, I tell you what, feeling good today. Let's go to 3. Woo! That's a first step followed by a next step. First 10% is a goal, making it a faith goal. Now, I'm a rip the Band-Aid guy off. I'm an all or nothing guy. I'm an extremist. I'm all those things. I literally went from 0 to 10%. But I know that's not everyone's story, and that's not what we teach here. That's not the journey, and that's not the story. That's not the encouragement. But what you see here in that journey, God doesn't yet just use giving to raise finances, although giving is a way to finance his kingdom. God doesn't just use giving to raise finances. He uses giving to raise people. Because this isn't a money journey. This is actually a faith journey. And as I said, 1%, that's all I got, God. Great. Just do it then. 1%. Boom. And just see God do what he does. And then here's the thing. The reason why Mike puts it as a minimum is that when your faith has got you and you've seen God's provision and goodness and blessing, that you've got to 10%, why stop? Why rip the handbrake on there? In other words, keep growing your faith. Okay, God, I'm going to try 11%. And what we define like beyond 10% is this realm of sacrificial giving. And I can tell you, Louisa and I, we stepped over the line into sacrificial giving many years ago. Let me tell you, that's where the real adventure begins. Because we've been out there in sacrificial giving land, and it's the Wild West sometimes. It's an adventure. There are some things out there that are just like, woo! And I'll be completely transparent with you. There have been times where we're out there in the realm of sacrificial giving where we've had to pull back from where we were. But we've made the decision that we are going to make 10% our floor and not our ceiling. So this is just us, and I'm not like, and you better too, because I'm going to check. No, but just our journeys, we got to 10%, and then we kept going. There's been some times and some circumstances where we had to pull back, but we said we're never going to go below 10%, and we're just going to trust God. And I can just tell you this, and no, I'm not going to show you my bank account. That's not much to show. But anyway, point being, we have seen God's goodness and faithfulness, and then we've been able to just steady things and then get back moving forward beyond that 10%. So this is my invitation is... Sorry, that was me getting ahead of myself. This is my invitation. Like, if you're at 0, then consider taking a first step. If you've taken a first step, then maybe consider taking a next step, and then just go on this faith-building journey. And I will give you a pro tip, like a 2025 pro tip, and that is to automate it. Just like you do your Netflix subscription. It's not a wild concept. And your Spotify, and your Amazon Prime, and your Disney Plus, and your Stan. Have anything I've missed? No. Max, who? Binge, yeah, all right. See what I'm saying? The point is, I don't want to miss out. No. So you automate it. That's my my pro tip. And automating it has 2 benefits. The first benefit is you make the decision once, not weekly. It's already taking a lot of pressure out of your life. Like, make the decision once. I'm going to take this step of giving, set it up, set and forget, boom. So every Sunday morning, you don't have to pray about it. The other benefit in 2025, it means you never forget. Because 20 short years ago, some people and some of you had to drive past an ATM on the way to church and withdraw that cash, baby. This is God's cash. But if you're running late, that's a problem. Or if you just plain forgot, you turn up, then someone starts about giving and you're like, oh. Or you went on holidays. I give every time I turn up. Yeah, okay. But anyway, so that's my encouragement. We do that. We just automate it. And here's the final thought. And the final thought is this, and I'm going to hand it over to Jesus for the last word on this series. Giving is the best investment. And yes, I did not learn this principle at my investment journey in my 20s. This is a kingdom principle, very clearly stated by Jesus in his go-to message, the Sermon on the Mount. Do not store up treasures on earth, where moths will eat them and rust destroys them and thieves break in and steal. No, instead store up your treasures in heaven where moth and rust can't destroy, thieves don't break in and steal. Because wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will be also.
We really hope you got a lot out of this message. If you live in the Perth area, we'd love for you to join one of our live experiences. For times and directions, as well as information, head to our website, elevatechurch.me. For those of you beyond the Perth area, we'd love for you to connect with our online experience, which premieres every Sunday via YouTube and Facebook Live, and on demand immediately after. And to partner with us to reach more people by giving financially, head to our website, elevatechurch.me, and also download our Elevate Church AU app.